On the morning of April 17, 2023, residents of the upscale Oakwood Terrace neighborhood in Portland, Oregon awoke to the sounds of sirens. Yellow police tape cordoned off the elegant Tudor-style home at 1428 Pinehurst Drive, where 42-year-old Marcus Wilcox, a respected investment banker, had been found dead in his home office. The call to emergency services had come from his wife of 7 years, Elena Wilcox, who claimed to have discovered her husband's body after returning from an overnight stay with her sister. What initially appeared to be a home invasion gone wrong would soon unravel into something far more complex. A tale of secrets, betrayal, and a digital footprint that would ultimately lead investigators to question everything about the seemingly perfect Wilcox marriage. According to neighbors and friends, Marcus and Elena Wilcox were the couple everyone envied. Their dinner parties were legendary, with Elena transforming their backyard into something worthy of a lifestyle magazine, while Marcus played the perfect host, ensuring everyone felt welcomed and valued. Their social media accounts showcased an enviable life of exotic vacations, elegant home renovations, and heartfelt anniversary celebrations. Marcus had built a solid reputation as a senior vice president at Pacific Northwest Financial, known for his integrity and business acumen. Elena, a graphic designer, had successfully launched her own branding agency 3 years prior and was admired for her creativity and professional drive. They appeared to have mastered the elusive work-life balance that so many couples struggled to achieve. What their social circle didn't see were the complicated layers beneath the surface of the Wilcoxes' marriage. Elena had transitioned shortly before meeting Marcus in 2014 at a charity fundraiser. Those closest to the couple noted that Marcus had been supportive from the beginning, often described by friends as Elena's biggest champion. At their wedding, he had moved guests to tears with a toast about how Elena had taught him what true courage meant. For the first 5 years of their marriage, the Wilcoxes were active members of their Portland community, particularly involved in charities supporting LGBTQ+ youth. Elena had become something of a local celebrity, speaking at events about her transition journey and using her and Marcus's relationship as an example of unconditional love and acceptance. But as detectives would soon discover, the Wilcox marriage had begun to change in subtle ways approximately 18 months before Marcus's death. The first sign of trouble appeared in the fall of 2021. According to Elena's statement to police, she had noticed Marcus becoming increasingly protective of his phone, taking it with him everywhere, even to the shower. If she approached while he was using it, he would immediately lock the screen or place it face down. Elena initially attributed this behavior to work stress. Pacific Northwest Financial was navigating a difficult merger, and Marcus was working longer hours than usual. By early 2022, other changes had emerged. Marcus joined a new gym, updated his wardrobe, and was spending more evenings at what he called client dinners that sometimes kept him out until the early hours of the morning. Detective Sarah Linden of the Portland Police Bureau later noted that these were classic warning signs, but ones that are easy to rationalize when you're in love with someone. According to Elena's testimony, everything changed on March 30, 2023. Marcus had left his laptop open when he went to shower before a business trip. Elena, looking for a document she needed for a client meeting, noticed a notification from an unfamiliar app. What she discovered would set in motion a chain of events that would end with Marcus dead less than 3 weeks later. The notification was from a dating app called Exclusive Connect, marketed to affluent professionals. Marcus's profile, active for approximately 9 months, described him as single, never married, and looking for the right woman to start a family with. His bio made no mention of Elena or his current marriage. Most disturbing to Elena was a section where users listed their relationship deal breakers. Marcus had listed transgender partners as his first deal breaker. In her statement, Elena described feeling as though she couldn't breathe upon seeing this information. 7 years of marriage, and he was presenting himself not just as single, but as someone who would categorically reject someone like her. It was like discovering that the person sleeping beside her was a complete stranger. What happened after Elena's discovery became the central question of the investigation. According to her initial statement, she confronted Marcus immediately. They had a heated argument, after which Marcus left for his business trip as planned. She claimed they spoke briefly by phone over the next 2 weeks, but had not resolved the issue. On the night of April 16, she decided to stay with her sister, Sofia Rivera, to clear her head and decide what to do about the marriage. Sofia corroborated this account, telling detectives that Elena had arrived at her apartment around 7:30 p.m. on April 16, visibly upset, but not disclosing the specific reason. The sisters had shared a bottle of wine and watched movies until falling asleep around midnight. According to Sophia, Elena left around 9 a.m. the next morning, saying she needed to talk to Marcus before he left for work. Elena told police that when she arrived home at approximately 9:30 a.m., she found the front door unlocked, which was unusual. Calling out for Marcus and receiving no response, she went to his home office, where she found him slumped over his desk with a single gunshot wound to the back of his head. The family's gun, normally kept in a safe in their bedroom closet, was on the floor beside him. In her recorded statement, Elena described screaming uncontrollably and being unable to process what she was seeing. She ran outside and called 911 from the driveway because she couldn't remain in the house with him in that condition. When first responders arrived at 9:47 a.m., they found Elena in the driveway, hyperventilating and unable to speak coherently. Marcus was pronounced dead at the scene. The medical examiner would later determine the time of death to be between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. the previous night, when Elena was supposedly at her sister's apartment. The investigation took a decisive turn when detectives obtained security footage from the Wilcox's neighbor, retired security consultant Howard Reeves. Reeves had installed a comprehensive camera system following a series of break-ins in the neighborhood the previous year. His front-facing camera had a partial view of the Wilcox's driveway. The footage showed Elena's car leaving the residence at 6:45 p.m. on April 16, consistent with her statement about going to her sister's apartment. However, at 11:23 p.m., the same car returned to the driveway and remained there until 1:17 a.m. when it left again. This contradicted Elena's claim of spending the entire night at her sister's apartment. When confronted with this evidence, Sofia Rivera admitted to lying in her initial statement. Elena had called her that night and asked her to cover for her if anyone asked. Sofia didn't ask why, assuming it was related to the couple's marital troubles. Cell phone records further complicated Elena's narrative. While her phone had indeed pinged towers near her sister's apartment during the evening hours, it had been turned off between 10:30 p.m. and 2 a.m., the window during which Marcus was killed. The most damning evidence came from Marcus's laptop. Digital forensics revealed that in the hours before his death, Marcus had been messaging with a woman named Vanessa Chambers on the exclusive Connect app. In their exchange, Marcus had mentioned that he planned to tell his wife about everything the following day and that he wanted to end their marriage. His final message, sent at 10:38 p.m., expressed a desire to live honestly. As the evidence mounted against Elena, Detective Linden conducted a second, more intensive interview. After 5 hours of questioning, Elena's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel. She finally admitted to returning to the house, saying she needed to see the messages for herself and understand how long he had been living this double life. According to her new statement, she had gone back intending only to gather more evidence of Marcus's deception from his computer. She hadn't expected him to be home, believing he was staying overnight at a hotel for a business conference in Seattle. Elena described entering the house to find Marcus in his office, actively using the dating app. He hadn't heard her come in. She stood in the doorway watching him smile at his screen and type messages, which triggered something inside her to break. In her revised account, a confrontation quickly escalated. Marcus allegedly admitted not only to the dating profile, but to a series of relationships with other women over the previous year. He confessed that he had made a mistake in marrying her and had been looking for a way out for months. Elena claimed that Marcus told her he had only married her because it made him look progressive and open-minded to his colleagues. He reportedly said their whole relationship had been about his image rather than love, and that he wanted a real wife who could give him children. In this new version of events, Marcus had become increasingly cruel during their argument, mocking her transition and telling her that he had never truly seen her as a woman. At some point during the confrontation, Elena went to their bedroom and retrieved the gun from the safe. She told detectives she didn't remember consciously deciding to get the gun, describing the experience as watching herself from outside her body. She only remembered standing in the doorway of his office again, seeing him turn to look at her with an expression of contempt. Then came the sound, and he was gone. On June 5, 2023, Elena Wilcox was formally charged with second-degree murder. Her defense team immediately began preparing a case based on temporary insanity and emotional distress, citing the extreme psychological trauma of discovering her husband's betrayal and transphobic attitudes. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Margaret Fowler, characterized the killing as a premeditated murder motivated by rage and revenge. The prosecution argued that this was not a crime of passion but a calculated act. Elena had turned off her phone, created an alibi with her sister, returned to the house when she knew her husband would be vulnerable, and shot him while his back was turned. The trial began in November 2023 and quickly captured national attention. It raised complex questions about identity, betrayal, and the psychological impact of rejection based on one's gender identity. Expert witnesses testified about the unique vulnerabilities and traumas experienced by transgender individuals, particularly in intimate relationships. Rebecca Langer, a psychologist specializing in LGBTQ+ mental health, testified for the defense about the profound psychological crisis that can be triggered when a transgender person is rejected specifically because of their identity, particularly by someone who had previously claimed to accept them. She described it as a form of betrayal that attacks the very core of who they are. The prosecution countered with testimony from Marcus's friends and colleagues, who described him as increasingly unhappy in his marriage, but afraid to leave due to concerns about how it would be perceived. According to his best friend, Marcus felt trapped and believed he had made a mistake, but didn't know how to end the marriage without being labeled a bigot. Messages recovered from Marcus's dating app conversations revealed a man struggling with his identity and choices. In one exchange with a woman he had been seeing regularly, he admitted to making a decision 7 years ago that he thought made him a good person, but now realized he was using someone else's identity to feel better about himself. He concluded that they were both living lies. After a 3-week trial and 4 days of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict: guilty of voluntary manslaughter, a lesser charge than the second-degree murder the prosecution had sought. On January 12, 2024, Elena Wilcox was sentenced to 12 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 8 years. The Wilcox case continues to spark debate among legal experts, LGBTQ+ advocates, and relationship counselors. Some view Elena as a sympathetic figure pushed beyond her breaking point by a profound betrayal, while others maintain that no amount of personal rejection justifies taking another person's life. Media commentators describe the case as a tragedy with no heroes, a cautionary tale about authenticity, honesty, and the devastating consequences that can unfold when people enter relationships for the wrong reasons or fail to communicate their changing feelings. For the friends and family left behind, the case remains a painful mystery of how a seemingly perfect relationship could end so violently. Many found themselves reviewing every interaction with the couple, searching for signs they might have missed that could have indicated the depth of unhappiness on both sides. As Elena Wilcox began serving her sentence at the Mountain View Correctional Facility, the digital footprints that exposed Marcus's deception have been preserved as evidence in a case that will likely be studied by criminologists and psychologists for years to come. The dating profile that Marcus Wilcox created to escape his marriage ultimately became the first domino in a tragic sequence that would end his life and forever alter Elena's. In her only public statement following her sentencing, released through her attorney, Elena expressed that there was no justification for what she did. She acknowledged that a moment of unbearable pain led to an action she could never take back, destroying 2 lives that night, Marcus's and her own. She expressed hope that by sharing their story, others might find the courage to be honest with themselves and their partners before it's too late. The Wilcox home at 1428 Pinehurst Drive was sold 6 months after Marcus's death. The new owners have renovated extensively, perhaps in an attempt to erase the memory of what happened there. But in Portland's Oakwood Terrace neighborhood, residents still speak in hushed tones about the couple who seemed to have everything, until a secret dating profile revealed that their perfect life was nothing but a carefully constructed facade. But the next story shocked even most veteran investigators. On the morning of March 17, 2024, residents of the affluent Clayton Heights neighborhood in Seattle woke to the piercing wail of sirens. Emergency vehicles descended upon the modern glass and cedar home at 4721 Lakeside Drive, a property that had been featured in architectural magazines and belonged to tech executive Daniel Reynolds and his wife Sophia. By nightfall, news had spread that 42-year-old Daniel was dead and his wife of 7 years was in police custody. The community was stunned. The Reynolds were, by all outward appearances, the embodiment of progressive success, a power couple who hosted charity events, attended gallery openings, and seemed genuinely in love. No one could have predicted the layers of deception that existed behind their carefully curated lives, nor the violent end that awaited one of them. The story of Daniel and Sophia Reynolds began like many modern romances, online, through a dating app in 2015. Daniel, then a rising star at Northwest Innovations, had recently relocated to Seattle from San Francisco. Ambitious and charismatic, he quickly established himself in the tech community, known for his innovative thinking and networking prowess. Sophia Morgan, as she was known then, worked as a graphic designer for a boutique agency specializing in branding for tech startups. Talented and striking, with high cheekbones and expressive eyes, she had completed her transition 2 years before meeting Daniel. Friends described her as confident, yet private about her past, preferring to focus on her future and career. Their connection was immediate and intense. Within 6 months, they were living together, and after a year, Daniel proposed during a weekend trip to Vancouver. The wedding was an elegant affair at a vineyard overlooking Puget Sound, attended by Seattle's tech elite and creative professionals. For the first 5 years of their marriage, the Reynolds appeared to have achieved the perfect balance of career success and personal happiness. Daniel received a significant promotion to Director of Product Development, while Sophia launched her own design consultancy, which quickly gained prestigious clients. They purchased their Lakeside Drive home, renovated it to showcase Sophia's design aesthetic, and became fixtures in Seattle's social scene. Beneath this gleaming surface, however, fault lines were forming. The first sign of trouble appeared in late 2000, and 22 on Sophia noticed subtle changes in Daniel's behavior. Longer work hours, increased business travel, and a newfound guardedness with his phone and laptop. Initially, she attributed these changes to work stress, as Northwest Innovations was preparing to launch a major new platform. By early 2023, Sophia's suspicions had grown. Daniel had become emotionally distant, often distracted during conversations, and less interested in their once active sex life. A friend in their social circle mentioned seeing Daniel at a restaurant in Bellevue with an unknown woman, describing their body language as intimate. When confronted, Daniel dismissed it as a business meeting. The digital breadcrumbs began accumulating. Unfamiliar charges appeared on credit card statements for hotels in Seattle, odd for someone who lived in the city. Rideshare receipts showed trips to residential addresses during times Daniel claimed to be at work. Text notifications from unknown numbers would prompt Daniel to immediately step away to respond. In April 2023, during a period when Daniel was supposedly at a conference in Chicago, Sophia received an anonymous email containing photos of her husband entering a downtown Seattle apartment building with a woman. The timestamp on the images matched a video call during which Daniel had shown Sophia the view from his Chicago hotel room, clearly a pre-recorded video. When Daniel returned home, Sophia chose not to confront him immediately. Instead, she began a methodical investigation into her husband's double life, installing tracking software on their shared devices and hiring a private investigator. What she discovered went far beyond a simple affair. Over the next 3 months, Sophia uncovered a pattern of behavior that shattered her understanding of her marriage. Daniel wasn't involved with just one woman. The private investigator documented meetings with at least 4 different women across Seattle and Portland. But more disturbing than the infidelity itself were the conversations Sophia found in recovered message threads. In these exchanges, Daniel described himself as trapped in his marriage to Sophia. He referred to her as not a real woman, and lamented to his lovers that he missed being with actual women. He spoke of plans to leave the marriage, but claimed he feared Sophia would destroy his reputation in their professional community if he did. Most devastating was the discovery of a private social media account where Daniel connected with conservative-leaning groups, presenting himself as a man forced to live a politically correct life in Seattle's progressive tech world while secretly maintaining traditional values. He had cultivated an entirely separate identity in these spaces, one that fundamentally rejected Sophia's womanhood and portrayed himself as a victim. For Sophia, who had undergone years of painful physical and emotional transition before meeting Daniel, these revelations were cataclysmic. The man who had claimed to love her completely, who had seemed to embrace and celebrate all aspects of her identity, had been living a complex lie from the beginning. By July 2023, Sophia had compiled extensive evidence of Daniel's double life. Friends reported that she became withdrawn, losing weight and taking leave from her business. She began seeing a therapist twice weekly and reached out to her estranged family for the first time in years. Those close to her believed she was preparing to file for divorce. What happened on the night of March 17, 2024, has been reconstructed through police reports, forensic evidence, and Sophia's own testimony. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Daniel returned home from what he claimed was a weekend business retreat. Sophia had prepared an elaborate dinner, opened an expensive bottle of wine, and set the dining room table with candles. According to cell phone records, she had spent the day sending normal, even affectionate messages to Daniel, giving no indication of what was to come. During dinner, Sophia methodically presented Daniel with evidence of his affairs, beginning with printed photographs and escalating to recordings of his most hurtful comments about her identity. Neighbors reported hearing raised voices around 9 p.m., though not loud enough to cause alarm in the spacious neighborhood where homes were set far apart. At 10:17 p.m., Sophia called 911, her voice described by the dispatcher as eerily calm. She reported that her husband had been stabbed and required medical assistance. When police arrived 7 minutes later, they found Daniel on the kitchen floor with multiple stab wounds to his chest and abdomen. A chef's knife from their wedding registry lay nearby. Despite paramedics' efforts, Daniel was pronounced dead at the scene. Sophia, still wearing a blood-stained evening dress, was sitting on the porch steps when officers arrived. She offered no resistance during her arrest, telling officers, "He said I wasn't real. I showed him what was real." The case against Sophia Reynolds moved rapidly through the legal system. Prosecutors charged her with second-degree murder, arguing the elaborate dinner setup demonstrated premeditation. Her defense team, led by prominent attorney Mira Hernandez, built a case around temporary insanity, citing the severe psychological trauma of Daniel's betrayal and the fundamental assault on Sophia's identity. The trial became a media sensation, drawing attention far beyond Seattle. Court proceedings revealed the full extent of Daniel's deception, including testimony from two of his lovers who confirmed his disparaging comments about Sophia and his misrepresentation of their marriage. Psychological experts testified about the unique damage caused by having one's gender identity, a core aspect of self that Sophia had fought hard to establish, systemically undermined by the person who publicly claimed to accept it most completely. Digital forensics uncovered that Daniel had been planning to leave Sophia for one of his girlfriends, having consulted with a divorce attorney about how to protect his assets and minimize any professional blowback. He had already secured a new apartment and begun moving personal items there in preparation. The jury deliberated for 4 days before returning with their verdict, guilty of manslaughter rather than murder, with a recommendation for leniency in sentencing. The judge, citing the extraordinary circumstances and evidence of Daniel's psychological abuse, sentenced Sophia to 8 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 5. Today, 3 months after sentencing, the Reynolds case continues to spark debate about relationships, identity, betrayal, and the limits of human endurance. The house on Lakeside Drive was sold, the proceeds frozen pending civil litigation from Daniel's family. Northwest Innovations established a workplace inclusion initiative, perhaps seeking to distance themselves from the revelations about their former executive's private beliefs. Sophia Reynolds, now inmate 8742991 at Washington Correction Center for Women, has declined all interview requests. Her former business partner maintains Sophia's design firm with profits held in trust. The only public statement from Sophia came through her attorney after sentencing. "There are no winners here, only fragments of lives built on illusions." For those who study true crime, the Reynolds case presents a distinctly modern tragedy, one where the crime itself, while shocking, seems almost inevitable in retrospect. It raises uncomfortable questions about how well we know our partners and the devastating consequences when intimate trust is shattered. It forces us to consider what happens when a person discovers that their most vulnerable truth has been privately denied by the one person they believed had accepted it completely. As one juror anonymously told the Seattle Times after the trial, "None of us could say with certainty what we would have done in her position. That's what made this case so difficult. Where is the line between understandable human breaking and unforgivable human violence? I'm still not sure I know." The Reynolds case reminds us that the most dangerous deceptions often occur not between strangers, but between those who share their lives, their homes, and their most closely held truths. Sometimes the perfect facade is just that, a brittle surface concealing irreconcilable realities, waiting for the inevitable moment when everything shatters. For more interesting stories, check this out.